Hi everyone, my name is Julie Day. I'm one of the program directors here at TransCelerate. I'm really happy to be speaking with you today, and we have a great bunch of presenters here to talk through the Common Protocol Template 101, Introduction to the Common Protocol Template today. So before we begin, I definitely want to introduce the team to you. So if we move on to the next slide, who we have presenting on today's webinar includes Kirsten Young. She is an Associate Director, Medical Writing Quality at Pfizer. We also have Stacy Teagan from TransCelerate. She's Project Manager who oversees the CPT initiative. We have Mark Macarat, Director Head, Global Clinical Development, Standards Training Excellence, Merck. Gloria McHugh, who is TransCelerate Project Manager and the logistics person and manager behind today's webinar. And Itsuko Asaka, who's TransCelerate Asia Pac Subject Matter Expert. So before we begin, just a few logistics regarding this webinar that I'll talk through. As you may have heard at the top of the call, all participants will be muted. For audio, you can connect to audio, either listen to the presentation via your computer or your phone. You can reduce your control panel for better view of presentation, and to do this, you click the orange arrow. And if you would like to submit a question to our presenters, please go ahead and type in your question in the questions panel and click send. And if you're having any feedback to report or any technical issues, please feel free to email us at events@transceleratebiopharmainc.com. Again, this is a live, we're going to include live polling for this webinar to make this session as interactive and as possible and to facilitate sharing of useful information. Your participation in our live polling is completely voluntary and all responses will be anonymous. So just to test out our polling capability here, what I'd like to ask all of you is to please select your favorite color between red, blue, orange, and pink. Once you're done, click submit, and we'll see where we land.
Great, I'm going to close it.
Okay, looks like blue was the winner. Excellent, thank you everybody. And just some quick ground rules as we move forward. These are very typical for TransCelerate webinars. We definitely want to make this discussion helpful and answer as many of your questions as we possibly can. So again, your participation is voluntary, as is using all of TransCelerate's assets and tools that are available. Please, you don't have to identify what company you work for, so please don't feel like you have to do that. And things that we would ask you not to discuss include what vendors, sites, CROs that you're using or not using. Please don't discuss any issues you may be having with any vendor sites or CROs. We certainly would like to ask you not to share your long-term development plans and anything related to costs. Things that we won't be able to answer questions about include vendor type questions, costs of implementing TransCelerate assets or tools, or which member companies are using the assets and the tools. So now that we've gone over some of these ground rules, let's do a quick look at the agenda. So I'm going to provide all of you with a quick overview of TransCelerate, and then we'll jump into the actual Common Protocol Template itself, whereby you'll get a rationale of the development and the benefits. Then we'll move forward to explaining the Common Protocol Template structure, describing the core template and the libraries, features of the Basic Word Edition and the Tech-Enabled Edition, and then we'll discuss available resources for implementation and spend some time doing some Q&A at the end. So I believe we have another audience poll. We would like to know where you're located and calling in from today. So you'll see the options here between North America, South America, Europe, Asia Pac, and Middle East Africa. Okay.
It looks like 58% North America, 33% Europe.
Excellent. All right. So thank you calling in from all over the globe. All right. So if we move along, again, I'll give you a little bit of an overview of TransCelerate. And as I mentioned at the top of the call, I'm one of the program directors here within the organization. And I oversee a subcommittee, one of three, called Information Sharing and Harmonization. And I have the pleasure and the privilege of working closely with the CPT team because this particular asset sits under the Information Sharing and Harmonization subcommittee. So moving along, TransCelerate is a not-for-profit entity, and we were really created to foster collaboration within the ecosystem. And our shared vision is really to improve the health of the people around the world by accelerating and simplifying the research and development of innovative new therapies. And TransCelerate really got off the ground back in 2012. We were founded by 10-member companies and started with 5 initial initiatives. And while there's been lots of growth over the years, some of our key mile markers or milestones within the include in 2016, our BioCelerate was founded, and that is our wholly owned subsidiary that really focuses on preclinical research. And as of today, almost 6 years later at this point, we have 19 member companies that are part of the TransCelerate family. Novartis is our most recent member. And our country network now spans over 22 different countries around the globe, and we're really proud of that number and are working hard to only see that increase. And we've moved from our initial 5 initiatives to now over 25 initiatives, including 4 initiatives in the pharmacovigilance realm. And we actively engage in over 13 global regulatory authorities around the world with regards to the initiatives that we're putting forward. And really around our portfolio, it's about increasing the breadth and the depth of our solutions. So at this point, over 30 being delivered across 25 initiatives between 3 strategic priorities. And really, we're here to establish a culture of collaboration. And we've done this with an effective and proven governance structure, which has increased the ease and desire to collaborate around the ecosystem. And 3, we're really here to facilitate future platform trials. We really feel like that's our end goal, with over 12 of our initiatives really delivering solutions that will be the stepping stones to facilitating this future vision. And at the bottom here, you'll notice TransCelerate. That is one of our enterprise-level technology environments that will ultimately house all of the initiatives that have to do with data sharing. So if we move along to the next slide, our reach of the global membership is expanding, as I just mentioned. You'll see here those member companies that support TransCelerate and are really available to us for research and development. And they help us engage in the innovative discovery and development and manufacturing that we're doing and also they're doing to discover new medicines. So while TransCelerate is a rather small consortia, on any given day we have over 1,000 people from each of these member companies that collectively help us move forward with the work that we do. And in terms of our external collaboration, we really continue to play a key critical role in achieving our future state. We certainly don't work as a single stakeholder within the ecosystem. We definitely like to collaborate and partner with multiple stakeholders across the R&D ecosystem, all of which are providing unique and important insights and perspectives to the work that we do. So we work closely with investigator sites, research and CRO communities, patient advocacy groups, other associations, as well as health authorities. And you'll see some examples noted on the slide, but they're certainly not exhaustive of all of those that we collaborate with. So really, we have a commitment to collaborate, commitment to partnership, and we're really trying to foster the support of data sharing among the community. So that's a little bit about TransCelerate. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mark McIlrath to go through the Common Protocol Template, rationale, development, and benefits.
Okay, thanks, Julie. Hello, everyone. As Julie said, I'm Mark McIlrath. I head up the Global Clinical Development Standards and Training function at Merck. And I'd like to review now some topics around Common Protocol Template, rationale, development, and benefits. So let's start our discussion by looking at the drivers for a common protocol template. Why exactly did we set out to create the CPT? At many meetings for some time, we've been hearing a variety of voices commenting on how sponsors design and implement trials. And this slide summarizes some of those specific inputs heard at a DIA meeting in 2015. Investigators spoke of the increasing complexity of our protocols and the fact that every sponsor seems to do things differently. This further complicates study execution for any site who is working with multiple sponsors. Sometimes a simple choice of words can also be of concern. We heard from patient advocacy groups that there was a sensitivity to the use of the word subject in many protocols. This reminded us that the trial participants themselves would also be a key stakeholder group to be considered. A key health authority perspective was expressed by an FDA colleague who reminded us that we would need to go beyond establishing common text. To achieve CDISC compliance, we would need to ensure end-to-end traceability of data from source to final data sets. So we set out to develop a common protocol template that would offer benefit to a number of stakeholders, both in the near term and also into the future. Starting with the sponsor, a common template could reduce redundancy and drive therapeutic standards, thereby enabling operational efficiencies and improved data quality. Over time, this common content could be reused to automate downstream processes and would also enable improved collaboration across sponsors. Sites would immediately recognize streamlined and better organized protocol content and see a reduced burden when working across multiple studies. In the future, a common protocol template could allow for harmonization of other site documents and processes that stem from the protocol. Institutional review boards or ethics committees would enjoy the same benefits as the sites. Finding the same information in the same location in protocols written across multiple sponsors could facilitate their review of protocols. And over time, common content will also support easier automation of IRB submissions. Looking now at the patient perspective, some of these immediate benefits to sites and IRBs would translate to increased efficiency in study startup and improved quality in ongoing trials for participants. In the future, the automation of downstream processes beyond the protocol could allow sponsors to get medicines to patients faster. Finally, regulatory authorities will see near-term benefits in terms of streamlined and more consistent protocols that are therefore easier to review. And over time, more commonality and increased use of automation and data standards will enable easier interpretation and comparison of results and could allow for more efficient reviews. Progress to date on the CPT includes the development of a human-readable template document. This will enable sites, reviewers, ethics committees, and regulators to find the same information in the same place and have it mean the same thing. The template consists of a core of common content supported by a series of libraries appropriate for a given study type or disease area. Critical protocol-level content has been aligned to the Data Standards Project, which is a collaboration between TransCelerate and the Coalition for Accelerating Standards in Therapies, or CFAST. The alignment of objectives, endpoints, and procedures is a critical element of the document-based solution. The human-readable template paves the way to evolving to a machine-readable protocol, where content is reused and metadata drives downstream processes, introducing the possibility of establishing the protocol as a digital platform with analytic trial design, role-based access to protocol information, etc. In both the document-based environment as well as the digital environment, it will be critical to reconnect certain processes and develop critical study components in parallel rather than serially. For example, an ECRF and Statistical Analysis Plan, or SAP. At this time, the template core will support trials in any therapeutic area. As a first step toward enabling data standards, disease-specific libraries have been created with common endpoint definitions based on the CDISC Therapeutic Area User Guide, or TAUG. From the start, the Common Protocol Template team has maintained a keen focus on a few key must-have elements or characteristics. We believe that this focus is what differentiates this initiative from past efforts. The team sought to develop a streamlined and consistent structure with common wording that is compliant with GCP and regulations. We heard of this need loud and clear from the investigator and site coordinator community. Endpoints were another area of focus, and the CPT team set out to ensure that each endpoint is mapped to a trial objective and aligned with a CDISC TA standard where appropriate. Beyond the template itself, and with the future automated state in mind, all initiative work has been grounded in the 4 anchors shown on this slide: metadata, reuse, traceability, and automation. Now that you have some idea of what the Common Protocol Template is, let's now consider what it is not. The CPT is not a training document, nor is it a document for internal contracting of downstream activities within a sponsor organization. The CPT is also not designed to be an enrollment feasibility document, nor a substitute for a development plan, investigator's brochure, or statistical analysis plan. Finally, it is also very important to note that the CPT has not been created to meet the needs of any possible reader, but rather it is designed just for investigative sites and regulatory reviewers. The CPT was developed with the participation of 17 member companies. The team consulted an advisory committee with industry and regulatory representatives for early direction. Subsequently, template content was reviewed in detail by a number of stakeholders, including investigators and site coordinators, institutional review boards, contract research organizations, and even the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, or FDA. Beginning in 2016, an important collaboration was established with the National Institutes of Health and FDA. The CPT team leveraged input from an NIH FDA public comment exercise and made a number of important changes to the CPT to harmonize it with the NIH FDA template. Since its inception in 2015, the CPT has been downloaded over 5,400 times from the TransCelerate website. 16 TransCelerate member companies are implementing the template, and 2 more member companies are evaluating adoption. And as was so important in the development of the template, user and member company feedback continue to be essential. We invite you to use the Talk to Us button on the CPT Assets page of the TransCelerate website to stay in touch with us. Now let's take a bird's eye view of our CPT journey, helping to move clinical trials from paper to a digital platform. Our initial 2 template releases were made in 2015 and established the basic Word edition and a robust implementation toolkit to enable adoption. 2016 saw release 3, and availability of a technology-enabled edition of the template to complement the basic Word edition. We also introduced guidance for authoring of amendments using the CPT. Release 4 in 2017 provided updates to the 2 CPT editions in alignment with that NIH FDA template I spoke of. Additional therapeutic libraries were also introduced, as well as some enhancements to the technology features. Importantly, the team also demonstrated proof of concept regarding the potential for CPT to drive automation of CRFs and traceability. Later in 2017, a second CPT release, Release 5, enabled disclosure of many protocol elements to clinicaltrials.gov and UDRA-CT, and provided 5 new therapeutic libraries. 2018 has been another busy year for the team, as we've been focused on establishing a governance model to ensure sustainability of the template, and also on expanding opportunities for user and health authority engagement. The team is now heads down in the final stages of preparation for a 4Q template release. Our 2018 release will feature a number of important additional capabilities, as well as new common statistical analysis plan and clinical study report templates to pave the way for automation and reuse of protocol content. In 2019 and beyond, we will continue to expand automation and reuse. So that concludes our review of CPT rationale, development, and benefits. And before I turn things over to my colleague Kirsten, I'd like to ask for your participation in the live poll. Again, as Julie indicated at the top of the call, your participation in the live poll is voluntary. All responses will be anonymous, and answers will be shared as a percentage of respondents. We'd just like to know a little bit more about how you author protocols at your company. So if you would, please tell us, how many protocols does your company use?
So far, we've had about 65% of the folks vote. It looks like 35% of the voters have one template and 22% use 2 to 3 templates. 12% have more than 3.
Okay, thanks for your responses. Some variety there in the practices of different companies. Good for us to understand a little more about that. Thank you. So at this point, I'll turn it over to my colleague Kirsten to take us into the next part of our discussion today.
Thanks, Mark. So I'm Kirsten Young. I'm an Associate Director of the Medical Writing Quality Group at Pfizer, and I'm going to take you through the next portion of the session where we discuss the CPT structure, specifically discussing the core template and its associated libraries, and then kind of give you a little bit of a feel for the basic word addition functionalities as well as the technology-enabled addition. So to start, what does the CPT look like? The CPT is really built on 3 main components. The first component being that of the core protocol backbone. And that's the text that you see here in dark orange, where the backbone is built upon common level 1 and level 2 headings and also contains common text. The intent of using this shell is that we can focus on our sites and investigators so that they see the same content regardless of whose company's protocol they're reviewing. The second component is that of the libraries. The libraries are broken down into 2 different types. We have participant libraries and therapeutic area libraries. The participant libraries consist of the healthy volunteer library, a patient library, and we also have a pediatric library. The therapeutic area libraries are where you would find endpoint definitions that are modeled for specific therapeutic area and indications. The libraries use functionality where we're able to point and click in the library and then automatically populate the core backbone when you're using the tech-enabled edition. The third component is that of the appendices. The appendices is where you would store more of your non-study specific information or company-specific content. This is where you would find such things as abbreviations or common text that would not change across templates. To help sustain this common protocol template, we have and are putting together a governance model to help drive it going into the next century. We are also working on making sure that we have a suite of materials available for everyone to help with implementation within your organization. So there's 2 CPT editions that we currently have. We have the basic word edition and the technology-enabled edition. The basic word edition is just that. It's a document-based template that can be used across all phases and study types. It can be adopted as is, or companies may choose to modify or format content specific for their organization. The initial version was released, as Mark said, in December of 2015. The technology-enabled edition is an MS Word-based template with add-ins. So the main functionality that we leverage in this template is point-and-click automation. This will populate the document with variables where we're then able to export and reuse that information in downstream processes. This version of the template was released in June of 2016, and it's important to note that it is in Microsoft Windows-based usage and that it's currently not compatible with Apple operating systems. So what does the basic Word edition look like? Again, it's just a Word document, and it can be located on the TransCelerate Common Protocol template website. When you go out to their site, if you click under the Common Protocol Template Tools and Resources, you'll see a blue bar where you can click on to see the basic Word edition templates and guidelines. When you click on the plus button, you'll see that there is a step-by-step guide for using the basic Word edition of the template. There's the basic Word core template, as well as a document that lets you know about the different types of text and styles that are used within the core template. Then below that, you'll also see that there are the participant libraries and the therapeutic area libraries that are in a basic Word format where you're able to save these files to your computer or desktop and begin authoring immediately. So what does the basic Word edition look like? So when you first open the document, it is just that. It's a basic Word template. The very first thing that we instruct authors to do is to go to their home menu and toggle their paragraph markers. Once you do that, you'll see that the document automatically populates with red instructional text. In addition to the red instructional text, as you work your way through the document, you'll see that there is common text. We note this text by having the carets where we start and end the common language. In addition to that, there's example text that also starts and ends with the carets for example text, and this is provided for you in green italicized font that you can incorporate into your protocol as necessary. So again, a very simplistic way, an easy format for using the basic Word edition. To build upon that, we have the tech-enabled edition. So while it may look a lot like paper, it's quite different. So the main functionality of this template, again, is that we populate content in variables where we're able to then export and reuse that information downstream. So how is this built together and how do you navigate? So on the left-hand side, you can see we have a navigation pane. This is where you'll see all of the common level 1 and level 2 headers. Across the top, you have the CPT menu bar. This is where you're able to add and delete variables. You can also convert or remove example text. You're also able to pop out instructional text or hide or view your CPT panel. Down the left-hand or the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see your CPT panel. This is where you're able to filter on the libraries that you want to choose for developing your protocol. Below that, you have your instructional text. So similar to the basic Word edition where that text appears in red, in the tech-enabled version, as you work your way through the document, that instructional text will populate in this window. Below that, you can see the trees for the different libraries that you're pulling data into your template from. And below that is a viewing pane where you can see the content that can be inserted. This is where you're also able to use the point and click functionality where if there's content that you would like to import into your shell, you can double click and it will automatically populate into one of the variables. And then these variables are where you can export into XML or Excel format for reuse and other processes. So again, there's a lot more functionality with the use of the technology-enabled edition. So, excuse me, to switch gears a little bit, we wanted to just specify, the need to use or the value of using the Common Protocol template moving forward. So to build upon that, the quality, we have had 19 sponsored companies that have been tapped into to help develop the template with input from regulators, CROs, and IRBs. So all of this work has been done for you. We've also used different sponsor best practices to help develop the therapeutic area specific libraries. We've also listened to stakeholders and taken suggested revisions, and those revisions have been used to help maintain and update the Common Protocol template over time. By using the Common Protocol template, we'll gain greater efficiencies by using this and for the investigators, sites, sponsors, and regulators. As far as the efficiency piece, our sponsors will be spending less time on low-value customizations, obviously because we've reduced the time that is needed in managing the template going forward. And it's also to help with authors' use. Sponsors can adopt the template in phased approaches. They can choose to use either the Word edition or the technology-enabled edition. They do not have to go all in on the onset. And then as far as a compliance perspective, the template is supported by the FDA, and we've had health authority feedback to date that's been unanimously positive. So with that being said, by harmonizing across companies, the value of using the Common Protocol template will increase. So that's kind of a little bit of background on the structure of the CPT. I'm going to switch gears just a little bit to talk a little bit about the available resources that are out there for you in implementing. So to start, there are different options that are available for adoption of the Common Protocol template. Companies and sponsors can choose their own path for adoption. So we can adopt by phase, by use of just the libraries, whether or not we're adopting just the Word-based version or the technology-enabled edition, but it's really up to your organization on how you adopt moving forward, and also setting those rollout timelines. Some organizations choose to roll out slowly through pilots, others choose to have a hard cutoff, or there's always the in-between. It's important to note that there are the different components, and we drive to have full implementation to get the most benefits. So again, the more harmonized we are, the more increased we will receive on the value. So as we adopt, we stress that there are those different components. You can adopt by using the common headings, whether you're choosing just those common language to use, there's the use of those libraries, or the Word or technology-enabled edition. So the resources that are available for you to download, if you go out to the TransCelerate's website and click on the Common Protocol template, this is where you'll be able to download that basic Word edition or the technology-enabled edition. And it also is where you're able to access the implementation toolkit. And the toolkit, again, is a suite of materials that help with implementation in your organization. So let's discuss the implementation toolkit. We have an executive summary. This is a brief summary on the rationale for the CPT and its value proposition. We also have the Common Protocol template communication slides, which is a slide deck that gives you the background and explanation of CPT. We have a user guide that provides guidance for the technology-enabled edition, and this version also contains video demonstrations on the functionality that's available in that technology-enabled edition template. We also have release highlights. This is a slide deck and a track change version of the latest release. We have an FAQ document. We have a mapping tool that allows you to map your templates to the CPT. We have stakeholder maps that allow you to assess the impact that the template will have on stakeholder groups within your organization. We have a text color guide, which shows the explanation of the different color codings that are used within the Common Protocol template. And finally, resources for protocol authors of just a partial list of things that should be taken into consideration when developing a protocol. So again, a lot of different resources that are available to help with implementation in your organization. So this is my final slide. I just wanted to point out that we are in the midst of a future release. The target release date is for November of 2018. And we've listened to different member companies and taken into consideration some increased benefits. So some of the things that you'll see in the new release that is coming is to allow for co-authoring. We have track change improvements. We have the ability to identify, remove, and convert variable text, and the ability to add and remove amendment-related sections from the Common Protocol template. We've also increased and improved the better visibility for inserting text in the CPT panel, and also the ability to add a new row of variables to your study interventions table. We also have introduced new libraries. So in this version, you'll see a cardiovascular safety library and also a vaccines library. We have updates to the Common Protocol core content, specifically relating to the EU clinical trial regulation analysis and alignment. We've also enabled the use in device protocols and created a more robust stat section where we're able to include estimands. And then the technology advances that you'll see in this version, the libraries can be stored in central locations and users can work on these files offline. And then the previous versions of the CPT can be viewed in a read-only mode. So again, a lot of nice new features to come. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Stacy Teagan, who can lead us through a question and answer session.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Mark, for that presentation. We did have some folks submit questions during the registration process, but we're happy to take questions live. If you can enter your questions into the poll, the question panel, we will certainly get to those as well. We'll start off with a few questions that were submitted during the registration process. Kirsten, I'm going to put this one to you. Can the CPT be used for different study types and phases? And there were a couple specific questions around that. Is it recommended for global international trials, or is it more geared towards domestic trials? And then there was also a question about can it be used for observational trials, or is it more focused on intervention trials?
Okay, great. So yeah, I mean, the CPT it's built to be used across all phases and study types. Obviously, organizations can choose to customize, and authors would need to customize according to their needs for that specific protocol. But in general, the template is set to be used across all phases.
Thank you. Gloria, could you flip back to the slide with the link to the website? There was a question that just wanted to view that while we were going through questions. Thank you. The next question is for Mark. Should the CPT be adapted? So when you bring it into your organization, how much flexibility is allowed by that organization?
Well, the CPT can be customized to meet the needs of individual sponsors. There are no restrictions on how that is to be done. But that said, and we saw this on a couple of slides, the more you sort of stray from the commonality that the CPT is intended to introduce, you really run the risk of losing some of the potential benefit of that to the many stakeholders that we looked at earlier in the discussion today. So to really fully leverage the value of CPT, we recommend keeping a number of the critical elements critical to that commonality that we talked about. I think probably most importantly, the level 1 and 2 headings. These have been, again, agreed with input from a lot of stakeholder groups, including FDA and NIH, harmonized with their template, in fact. And this will really be a foundational element for ability to reuse content. But importantly, for just people reading the protocol, having the same thing in the same place all the time will provide a great deal of benefit. Another key element that is included in the template that we really want to see people embrace is that connectivity between endpoints and objectives. That enables consistency and quality at a program level within the sponsor, allows you to really make sure you're not doing things in the protocol that aren't achieving your goal of demonstrating efficacy or safety. Really allows you to track orphan endpoints. You shouldn't have those. Again, foundational for automated traceability. The TA libraries have also been designed around standards in place, and again, vetted across a number of sponsor companies working in those therapy areas. So that's another place where you can really get a lot of benefit from using common text. Also, a lot of data standards built in, again, with the end in mind, future state of automation. And in general, really the whole content, the whole structure of the document has been with the intent to simplify and reduce the length of the protocol itself. And I think even something, we talked about terminology, not using the term subjects, using a term called scheduled activities as a harmonized approach to the so-called study flow chart, putting it in front of the protocols and a user request. So just a lot of these elements I just ran through are things that we would consider critical to considering your company to have adopted the template. Sorry for that long answer, but there's really a lot in there that will bring a lot of benefit, we think.
Thank you, Mark. We'll switch focus to the technology-enabled edition. We have a few questions around that, and the first one I think follows on to what you were just saying about benefits. What are the key benefits of the technology-enabled edition?
So again, really, it's all about reuse, content reuse, and ability to automate that. So think of writing something in your protocol that you can then essentially push a button and have that content be moved from the protocol into another downstream document, like the clinical study report or the statistical analysis plan. This will be coming soon. We've already enabled that functionality for the purposes of disclosure, and we'll continue to work on these activities as a team. Obviously, this automation reduces error, reduces rework, allows for standards at program level within your sponsor organization, and we hope someday for further health authority collaboration, institutional review board, as these other organizations embrace technology and automation. It really has the promise of this is really to change the way that we do clinical trials end to end.
Excellent, thank you, Mark. A couple specific questions about the technology-enabled edition. Can you use it with other systems, document management systems, etc.? I won't perhaps call out specific vendors, but is it possible to implement the technology-enabled edition with other technologies?
I would say yes. I mean, it's a Word-based template. And we've had adoption, a number of sponsors that have other platforms in place and that have successfully adopted the template.
Thank you. Another question here regarding...
if I could just add one more thing about that. So to that point, Stacy, I think if you're looking at the tech-enabled edition, we would recommend definitely engaging your IT colleagues within your organization as part of that discussion and planning process. That's very important, and in fact, we have an implementation toolkit asset that speaks to that in a little bit more detail, why it's important and why you want to have somebody with IT expertise sort of having a seat at the table as you discuss adoption. Sorry, Stacey.
No, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Looking back over the evolution and development of the CPT, how much collaboration has occurred with CDISC to ensure alignment with standards and to also enable downstream processes? I'll be happy to take that question. We've had a very close working relationship with CDISC. Our initial, in 2014, when the work stream kicked off, we worked very closely with their protocol representation group. What we've done within the technology-enabled edition is include content controls to capture metadata, protocol-level data, and those content controls do align to standards such as the CDISC clinical trial registry standard. Also, in the therapeutic area libraries that we have, there are 9. Those are based on the CDISC therapeutic area user guides and enable use of the CDISC standards from objectives to endpoints. We think this is a foundational element to start enabling traceability through use of standards from objectives to endpoints, and we hope we get to the point where we can then trace through to the measurements and eventually to the results. We will be working closely with the TransCelerate initiative for digital data flow to further explore these capabilities. Another question that has come in, which I know is a challenge that our team has discussed, and Mark, I'll ask you if you have some thoughts about this. Has CPT met the challenge of evolving study designs, adaptive trials, platform trials, basket trials? And Mark, I'll ask if you want to add anything. My conversations with the team is this is something that's on everyone's mind, and certainly something we want to continue to explore. And folks will be attending some conferences and such to start getting ideas about how to validate the applicability of CPT in those use cases. Mark, is there anything you want to add to that?
Well, I guess I would also say that it's a template, and as with any template, there's white space, right? And the white space is filled in by the individual design of a trial that can't be determined centrally. There's no one way to do these trials. So some of that, I think, is going to still be resident within the sponsors in how they fill in the template. It obviously doesn't it doesn't have pre-filled text for many of the sections. That would be variable depending on the design of your trial. But to the extent possible, we would look to provide for a template that facilitates any kind of design, including adaptive or basket trial.
Thank you, Mark. The next question I'm going to ask Kirsten to take. What are some of the current issues that, in addition to accommodating different trial designs, what are some of the current issues that the team is looking at for improvement?
Okay, sure. So I think, a lot of the common issues that have been brought up are a lot of the things that we're trying to address in the next issue, the next release that's coming soon. So one of those being vaccine studies. So we had a lot of comments on how do we adapt it for vaccines trials. So we've introduced a new library for the vaccines. We've also tried to implement improvements for allowing the use in device studies and also combination trials. We've heard a lot about the stats section and making sure that we have updated to include ICH draft guidance on estimands, and also some improvements on just the overall usability of the interface for this technology-enabled edition, specifically being that of the CPT panel and being able to view and insert text. And then finally, the use of the SAP and the CSR templates, I think, were, a huge concern in trying to identify the content that should be taken from protocols that we can reuse downstream.
Excellent. Thank you. Mark and Kirsten, you probably both can contribute to this question. What are some struggles with implementation? And there's a couple of versions of this question that came in, so I'll try to summarize. What are some of the barriers seen to adoption? What are some of the challenges, and any advice that you might have for an implementation lead?
So I'll go ahead and start, Mark, if that's fine. So as far, the main thing I think is resistance within your organization. That's obviously going to be the biggest barrier of people wanting to resist change. I think it's really important that you're able to gain leadership buy-in and make sure that you have that top-down support. And then also making sure that, you have a defined approach on how you are going to implement. So whether, your organization is going to do a hard cutover or whether they're going to implement in pilots. But it's very important to, put together a strategy within your organization and make sure that you have that leader buy-in.
Yeah, I'll echo that and take it down a notch as well. So once you have that sponsorship from your leadership level within your organization, then the implementation leader will start a process with a team, typically, where you actually have to look at your protocol currently and compare it to what's in the common protocol template. And another bit of advice I would offer there is, don't open the meeting by saying, do you think we can implement this? And do you think we can use this section instead of ours? Really take an approach more like, tell me why we can't use the common text in the TransCelerate Common Protocol template. Because I think many sponsors have developed their own text for things over the years, and for one reason or another think that it's the best, but go into it with really an open mind and try to steer the team, whoever it is, the leader of your implementation should try to steer the team in the direction of, tell me why we can't do this, because there's a lot of benefits at stake that you could reap from adoption.
Excellent, thank you. There was a couple questions around libraries, and I'll go ahead and take this one. Can libraries be modified? In the Word version, you can absolutely customize the libraries according to your needs. Within the technology-enabled edition, there are some limitations around that, and it's something the team is planning to explore in 2019. But there are obviously workarounds that you could incorporate with the technology-enabled edition. If, for example, you wanted to add a company-specific library with company-specific text. And we would be happy to answer specific questions if you wanted to contact the team in that Talk to Us button at the top of the CPT website page. Here is an interesting question. Mark, I'm going to send this one to you. What is a good way for organizations to measure the impact of implementing CPT?
The all-important metrics question. I guess my first thought on that would be, it kind of depends what you're already measuring at your company, right? Because if you want to measure improvement on something, you really have to have a baseline. So what are you measuring today as far as how you're writing protocols and how you're getting studies started up? Those would be you really need to think about some of those existing measures and whether there might be impact due to use, transition to use of the CPT. We've been doing some thinking about this at the CPT level, but we have not put anything out there yet. Again, I think a lot of it varies on how you do your work in your company, what roles do what parts of the authoring process. Is it mostly done by one person, or is it authoring by committee? Is it something that you typically have a defined timeline for authoring protocols, or does it vary greatly in your company? These things will really determine whether you're going to see a measurable impact on the process. Some of the things you might want to think about would be the length of the protocols. We've tried to eliminate redundancy and repetition in different sections, so hoping that protocol length will be reduced. You might look at time to first draft of a protocol. Maybe that's a good measure. Again, it really depends on how your organization is working today. If there's already a lot of variability in that, it may be harder to see a measurable benefit. Number of amendments is something else that companies look at. Has use of a different template improved quality, such that you have fewer things that need to be corrected by an amendment down the line. So these are just some of the ideas, but again, I think it depends to a great degree on how you're measuring things at your company now and how you execute your protocol process. Thank
you. About 5 to 6 minutes left. We have time to take a couple more questions. There are a couple of questions around regulator acceptance and is it compliant with regulations. I'll just speak to the team put a lot of thought and care into building the CPT. We had the advantage of having 19 member companies involved who were all, of course, submitting compliant protocols at the time, and we used their templates as inputs. The compliance issue really, it depends on what you put in the template, of course, but as it's written, it has been used to create many protocols and submitted to regulatory agents without any issues. So we do feel that it has adherence to regulations worldwide for global studies. Regarding health authority engagement, and there was a question around, is it been formally accepted or sanctioned by any regulatory agency? And we can't say that it's been formally sanctioned by any regulatory authority. However, we've had a close working relationship with an expert working group from FDA. They reviewed version 2 of the Common Protocol template. They gave us written feedback, and we've incorporated those changes. So we do feel that it meets the needs of the regulatory community. A couple more minutes if you would like to enter a question into the panel. There was a question about when might the next version be available? Mark?
Sometime in November.
November 13th or 15th,
heads down. We're heads down toward working on a mid-November date. Yep. We'll stay tuned. We'll have more definite announcement for you as we get closer.
And at that time, what materials will be available to show the update?
Well, if you've looked at the implementation toolkit, there are a lot of different assets, and one of them is focused on really a summary of changes, like we have a summary of changes in the protocols for amendments. We have the same sort of asset with all of our releases, where we describe what's new and different, and then there'll be some additional assets that go into more detail about some of the new features and offerings.
I think we have time for one final question that just came in. Can you elaborate on CSHARP as it relates to regulators? So ICH has adopted a topic called CSHARP, Clinical Electronic Structured Harmonized Protocol. And those of you familiar with the ICH process, ICH is embarking on probably around a 3-year work plan to develop a ICH guideline around protocol. This is a brand new topic. My understanding is ICH is in the process of forming an expert working group, as their process is, and we will follow that group very closely. We're very excited and hope that there will be great alignment with the TransCelerate Common Protocol template.
All right, well, it certainly wouldn't be a TransCelerate webinar if we didn't do a final poll question. So we'd like to know, how much value would your company gain by implementing the CPT within your company? So no value, a little value, moderate value, a lot of value, or I'm not sure. And Gloria, I guess let me know when we're good.
We've got about half of the people on the phone have voted so far, so please take a moment to vote before you hang up and we end the webinar. All right, at this point we have about 20% of folks said that they felt that their company would see a moderate value, 51% said a lot of value, and about a quarter of the folks said that they're not sure, so I guess they need to do some additional investigations there. So thank you for voting.
Okay. A big thank you to Gloria, Kirsten, Mark, and Stacy for presenting today, and a huge thank you to all of you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us for the CPT 101 webinar that we just completed. For more information, you can always visit us at TransCelerateBiopharmaInc.com. Certainly feel free to watch our About Us videos, and if you'd like to, please sign up for our newsletter, Accelerate to Innovate, for more information, all things TransCelerate. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.